We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network from our flagship station in the nation's capital, WWRC in Washington, D.C. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. On today's special Illegal Immigration Edition, we are talking economics, budgets, employment and society, and how they're all impacted by the floods of people who enter the country illegally. It's going to be quite the show. Please remember, Liberty Nation Radio is sponsored by LibertyNation.com. You can access podcasts, breaking news analysis, and a range of biting and brilliant shows to whet your appetite for freedom and your fondness for the great American Constitution. And you're on Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. We're very fortunate to have with us on this immigration extravaganza, Liberty Nation's economics guru, Mr. Andrew Moran. Thanks for being here, Andrew.
For having me.
So, Andrew, it's obviously it's all systems go in terms of what's happening with immigration. It's an immigration drawdown, some might say. And what we've seen since Trump came back to office is I think it's a more than 90% reduction in border crossings. And then, of course, he's exempted from the privilege of visas, 12 countries with a potential of 36 on the way. And the deportations of those already in the country illegally appears to be continuing apace. And that has the folks over at Washington, D.C.'s most prominent news outlet in a bit of a fluster, because they say that immigration might be the lowest number, or in reverse, for the first time in 50 years. Give us the outline there, Andrew.
Yeah, you see the numbers, especially on the labor force side of things, that the number of immigrant workers or foreign-born workers, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, has actually been on the decline this year, which has been notable, because for the last few years you've seen such a divergence between the number of employed U.S.-born workers and the number of employed foreign-born workers. It's such a wide gap, and it's been a wide gap since around late 2019. So that's been a really significant sign in the U.S. labor market. And one thing when I was reading this article, what came to mind is that during the Biden years, people were saying, yeah, well, all this job gains is because of illegal immigrants. And if you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics methodology, they include illegal immigrants in that foreign-born worker metric. So I think the timing is interesting, whereby you have the complete collapse of illegal immigrants crossing the border and all these deportations, and then you're all seeing a decline in the number of employed foreign-born workers. So it's not just legal immigrants who are getting jobs.
Yeah, it's one of the unspoken open secrets that, the job data, it accounts for that. Now, interestingly, there's a recent report out in the UK that illegal immigration accounts for a huge part of I want to term this correctly. It's several orders of billion, which in the UK is a lot of money. Not in America, of course, but it's a lot of money in the UK. A part of the black market economy, which obviously doesn't pay taxes, and yet it's still counted in the overall figures, especially when Britain was part of the European Union, because the remittances to the European Union, they counted, well, you've got this much of a black market economy as well. Well, we want our cut of that. It was very much a mafioso way forward. So with if the DC's most prominent paper is correct, and there's actually going to be a reverse in the immigration numbers, what does that mean economically?
Well, we should differentiate between legal and illegal immigration.
Well, let's start with illegal then.
Okay. So what I found funny, comical in this article was that it kept saying how, if we get rid of all these illegal immigrants, then wages are going to climb for all these different sectors. And
how terrible!
And they're going to have higher inflation, and it's to be all the higher costs that companies are going to be they're going to be borne onto them will be passed on to the customers. Now, so far, of course, we have yet to see the inflation from anything under this administration, whether from immigration or tariffs. Now, it could be a lag effect, but who knows? Now, on the legal side of it, that is more concerning, because if you look at, let's say, the JOLTS report, that's the monthly survey conducted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that shows the number of job vacancies in the United States. This number has remained elevated. It's still above 7 million. It's higher than it was before the coronavirus pandemic. So the United States does have a labor shortage. And, the Chamber of Commerce regularly publishes a report identifying this problem. Now, the White House thinks it can reverse this because the number of working men is they're out of work. So therefore, they can fill this gap. But they've yet to do this over the last few years. I think the other side of the equation is more concerning, is the entitlement spending. Because if you have fewer workers in the United States, then of course there's going to be fewer people contributing to the Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. As Liberty Nation has reported for years, this thing, it's running out of money. And if you have, let's say, 2 to 1, two employed workers for every retiree, that's not a sustainable program. So you need legal immigrants to come in to help fill that gap and to sustain these programs. Now, that's who knows if that's going to happen or not. But if legal immigrants are really falling for what the media is saying, then yeah. So I don't know. Americans aren't having babies. They're not growing the populations. A lot of it's through immigration, which is, you can debate the merits of that, but the economics of it shows that you need immigration if you want to keep everything intact: Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and the other mandatory spending.
Yes, you pointed out in a recent article on the one big beautiful bill that's currently making its way through the Senate that and this is an old sore for Washington D.C., but it doesn't have a revenue problem. It has a spending problem. I guess until the spending gets under control, there's no real way to separate immigration from the overall economic debate, even though in any sensible, serious country, you shouldn't be reliant on foreign workers, I think. Otherwise, what kind of a country is that? What's your take on that?
Well, yeah,
that's just my opinion.
Sure. Fine. In a perfect world, okay, perhaps, but that doesn't take the fact away that you need legal immigration in today's world, because whether where you are, where I am, or the United States, the domestic population is not having children. There was a slight uptick in the United States. I think it was last year before, but overall, it's been just a steady decline. And the problem with that is that, fine, the Americans are having babies, but politicians have made all these grandiose promises and have been Santa Claus for the last several decades. And now those bills are coming due. And so now you're going to have to immigrate people from India. You're going to have people come from, Australia or whatever the case to sustain everything.
Yeah. However, I find the reality of that situation is it's a very short-term solution, isn't it? Because as people move to, for example, the United States, they tend to adopt the habits and customs, and they also don't have the same amount of children they may have had in their home country, and they end up with the 2.4 or 1.8 or 1.9 that the rest of the population is having. And so it's like a Ponzi scheme almost.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
you're bringing in people because you need more people to pay into the Social Security as people get older. But then these people will also want to have the Social Security, the Medicaid, Medicare as they get older, and so you have to bring in more and more. It's the world's most depressing Ponzi scheme. But let's talk about some more bright sparks on the horizon, potentially for the middle and working classes. After this short break, don't go anywhere.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.